The graduation I wasn't invited to. Okay, so let me tell you about the most awkward, heartbreaking, but also kind of beautiful situation I ever got myself into. It all started about 3 months before my niece Emma's college graduation. So, Emma, right? She's my older sister Rachel's daughter, and I've known this kid since she was literally born. I was there in the hospital when she came into this world, all tiny and wrinkly and screaming her head off. I was the cool aunt who taught her how to ride a bike, who let her stay up late watching movies her mom said were too scary, who snuck her candy when Rachel wasn't looking. We were tight, you know? Like really tight. But something happened when Emma turned about 16. She just changed. And I don't mean in that normal teenage rebellion way where kids dye their hair purple or whatever. I mean she got distant with me specifically. Like she'd still be fine with her mom, fine with her dad, fine with everyone else in the family. But with me, cold as ice. At first I thought maybe I'd done something wrong, you know? Maybe I'd said something that upset her and didn't realize it. So I tried asking her about it, tried pulling her aside at family dinners and being like, hey, what's going on? Did I mess up somehow? But she'd just give me this look, this really hard look, and be like, nothing's wrong, Aunt Jenny. I'm just busy. And then she'd walk away. It hurt, man. It really hurt. But I figured, okay, maybe she's just going through something. Teenagers go through stuff. I'd give her space, and eventually she'd come around. Except she didn't come around. Not when she graduated high school. Not when she left for college. Not during any of the holidays when she came home. Every time I saw her, it was the same thing. Polite, but distant. Like I was some acquaintance she barely knew, instead of the aunt who used to braid her hair and read her bedtime stories. My sister Rachel noticed it too, obviously. She'd pull me aside sometimes and be like, I don't know what's going on with her. I've tried talking to her about it, but she won't tell me anything. And I just shrug and pretend it didn't bother me as much as it did. So anyway, fast forward to March of this year. Emma's graduating from State University with a degree in environmental science, which is awesome, right? She worked her butt off for 4 years. Rachel's been planning this big celebration for months, talking about it at every family gathering. She's got the party venue booked, she's ordered a custom cake, she's invited like 100 people. It's gonna be this huge thing. And then one day, I get a text from Emma, just out of nowhere. I'm sitting at work, it's like 2 in the afternoon, and my phone buzzes. I look down and it's her. My heart does this little jump because Emma never texts me. Like, never. The last text I got from her was probably 2 years ago, and it was just, thanks, after I sent her a birthday card with some money in it. So I open the text, and I'm expecting, I don't know what I'm expecting. Maybe she's finally ready to talk about whatever's been going on between us. Maybe she wants to grab coffee and clear the air before graduation. But no. The text says, Aunt Jenny, I know Mom probably already told you about my graduation. I wanted to let you know directly that I'd prefer if you didn't come. I hope you can respect my wishes. I swear to God, I read that text like 10 times, each time hoping I'd misread it somehow, you know? But nope, it said exactly what I thought it said. My niece, the girl I'd known her entire life, was uninviting me to her college graduation. I just sat there at my desk, staring at my phone. My coworker Denise walked by and asked if I was okay, because apparently I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I couldn't even answer her. I just kinda nodded, and she went away. I didn't respond to Emma's text right away. I couldn't. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to call her and demand an explanation. Part of me wanted to text back something snarky like, "Don't worry, wouldn't dream of it." But mostly, I just felt this crushing sadness. I went home that night and I cried. Like, really cried. The kind of crying where you can't catch your breath and your whole body shakes. I called my best friend Lisa and told her what happened, and she was just as shocked as I was. She kept saying, "That doesn't make any sense. You two were so close. There has to be a reason." But that was the thing. I didn't know the reason, and Emma clearly wasn't going to tell me. The next day, I called Rachel. I figured maybe she knew something I didn't. Maybe Emma had finally opened up to her mom about whatever issue she had with me. "Hey, Rach," I said when she picked up. Did you know Emma doesn't want me at her graduation?" There was this long pause. Then Rachel sighed, and I could tell she'd been dreading this conversation. "Yeah," she said quietly. "She told me yesterday. Jenny, I'm so sorry. I tried talking to her about it. I told her she was being ridiculous and hurtful, but she won't budge. She won't tell me why either. She just keeps saying it's her graduation and her choice." "Did I do something?" I asked. My voice cracked a little. "Did I hurt her somehow and not realize it?" "I don't think so," Rachel said. "I've been racking my brain trying to figure it out. I even asked David if he knew anything." David's Emma's dad. "He's as confused as we are. She's been weird about you for years now, and none of us understand it." We talked for like an hour, going over every possible thing I could have done wrong. Did I forget an important event? No. I'd been to every birthday, every school play, every important moment, until she pushed me away. Did I say something insensitive? Not that either of us could remember. Did I do something to embarrass her in front of her friends? Nope. We came up with nothing. Absolutely nothing. "So what do I do?" I asked Rachel. "Do I respect her wishes and stay away?" Rachel was quiet for a minute. Then she said, "Honestly, I don't know. As her mother, I want to tell you to come anyway because this is family and she's being unreasonable. But as your sister, I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position." "What do you want me to do?" I pressed. "I want you there," she said firmly. "You're my sister. You've been a huge part of Emma's life, even if she doesn't appreciate it right now. But I'll understand if you decide to stay home. I really will." After we hung up, I spent the next few days just thinking, going over everything in my head, trying to figure out what to do. And here's where things get complicated, because about a week after Emma sent me that text, I found something out. Something big. Something that changed everything. I was at my doctor's office for what I thought was just a routine checkup. I'd been feeling tired lately, more tired than usual, and I'd been getting these weird headaches. I figured it was just stress from work or whatever. My doctor, Dr. Patel, she's great. I've been seeing her for years. So I go in, she runs some tests, and she tells me to come back in a few days for the results. When I went back, the look on her face told me it wasn't good news before she even opened her mouth. "Jenny," she said, gesturing for me to sit down. "I need to talk to you about your test results." My stomach dropped. You know that feeling when you just know something bad's coming? That. "We found some abnormalities," she continued. "I'm going to need to refer you to a specialist, but based on what I'm seeing, I'm fairly certain you have a brain tumor." The room kinda spun for a second. I heard her keep talking, saying words like malignant and aggressive and treatment options. But it all sounded like I was underwater. How long have I had it? I managed to ask. Hard to say for certain, Dr. Patel said. But given the size and your symptoms, I'd estimate at least a year, maybe longer. A year, maybe longer. That meant I'd had this thing growing in my head all through Emma's coldness, all through the family gatherings where she barely looked at me, all through everything. What's the prognosis? I asked. My voice sounded weirdly calm. Dr. Patel didn't sugarcoat it. With treatment, we're looking at anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. Without treatment, probably less than 6 months. I scheduled an appointment with the specialist, an oncologist named Dr. Richardson. He confirmed what Dr. Patel had suspected. Grade 4 glioblastoma. Super aggressive. Really bad odds. Dr. Richardson laid out my options: surgery, radiation, chemo, the whole 9 yards. He was honest with me about the side effects and the success rates, which weren't great. He also told me that even with aggressive treatment, I was probably looking at a year, maybe a year and a half if I was lucky. I asked him if I could wait a few months before starting treatment. I had my reasons, which I'll get to. He said it wasn't ideal, but if I understood the risks, it was my choice. The tumor would keep growing. I'd probably start having more symptoms. But yeah, I could wait if I really wanted to. I left his office and just drove around for hours. I didn't go home. I didn't call anyone. I just drove and thought. Here's the thing. When you find out you're dying, and I mean really find out, not just in that abstract way where you know everyone dies eventually, but when a doctor tells you that you've probably got less than 2 years left on this earth, it changes your perspective real fast. All the petty stuff falls away, all the grudges, all the hurt feelings, all the pride. None of it matters anymore. And Emma's graduation was in 3 months. 3 months. If I started treatment right away, I'd probably be too sick to go anyway. The chemo, the radiation, all of it would knock me on my ass. But if I waited, if I held off on treatment until after graduation, I could make it. I'd probably feel like crap. The headaches might get worse, but I could physically be there. The question was, should I? Emma had made it crystal clear she didn't want me there. She'd drawn that line. And normally, I'd respect it. I'm not the kind of person who pushes into spaces where I'm not wanted. But this was different. This was her graduation, probably the last major life event of hers I'd ever get to see. And she was my niece, my first niece, the little girl I'd loved since before she even knew what love was. I thought about what I'd regret more, going and making her uncomfortable, or not going and never getting another chance to see her achieve something this big. The answer was pretty obvious. I made my decision. I was going to go to that graduation, whether Emma wanted me there or not. And I wasn't going to tell anyone about the tumor. Not yet. Not until after. Now, before you judge me, let me explain my thinking here. If I told my family I was dying, they'd make the graduation all about me. They'd be crying and hugging me, and it would completely overshadow Emma's day. And that wasn't fair to her. This was her moment, her accomplishment. She deserved to have it be about her. Also, if I told Emma I was dying, she might feel obligated to let me come, and then she'd resent me for it. Or worse, she might think I was manipulating her, using my illness to guilt her into wanting me there. I didn't want that either. So I decided I'd go. I'd stay in the background. I'd watch her walk across that stage and get her diploma. And then I'd leave. She probably wouldn't even notice I was there. And if she did and got mad, well, I'd deal with that. At least I'd have the memory. I texted Emma back finally. It had been like 2 weeks since her initial message. I kept it simple. I just said, I understand. Congratulations on your graduation. I'm proud of you. She didn't respond. I didn't expect her to. I didn't tell Rachel about the tumor either, even though it killed me to keep it from her. Rachel and I tell each other everything. We've been best friends since we were kids, not just sisters. But I knew if I told her, she'd fall apart, and then she'd tell Emma, and the whole thing would spiral. Instead, I just told Rachel I decided to respect Emma's wishes and stay home from graduation. She was disappointed, but understanding. Maybe after some time passes, she'll come around, Rachel said hopefully. Maybe she'll realize how much she's hurt you and want to make things right. I didn't have the heart to tell her. I probably didn't have that kind of time. The next couple months were rough, not gonna lie. The headaches got worse. I started having these moments where I'd forget words or lose my train of thought mid-sentence. Nothing major yet, but enough that I noticed. Enough that Denise at work noticed and kept asking if I was okay. I threw myself into work as much as I could, kept busy, tried not to think about the fact that I was running out of time, tried not to think about all the things I wouldn't get to do, all the people I wouldn't get to say goodbye to properly. But mostly, I thought about Emma, about why she'd pushed me away, about what I could have possibly done to make her hate me so much. Because it had to be hate, right? Or something close to it. You don't uninvite someone from your graduation unless you really don't want them in your life. I thought about writing her a letter, like a real letter, not a text or email, something she could keep, something that explained how much she meant to me, how proud I was of her, how sorry I was for whatever I'd done to hurt her. But every time I sat down to write it, I couldn't find the words. What do you say to someone who doesn't want to hear from you? Graduation day came faster than I expected. It was mid-May, one of those perfect spring days where the sky's super blue and there's a light breeze and everything smells like flowers. The ceremony was at 2 in the afternoon at the university's stadium. I got up that morning and stared at myself in the mirror for a long time. I looked tired. The tumor, the stress, everything was taking its toll. I had dark circles under my eyes that concealer couldn't quite hide. I'd lost some weight, but I put on a nice dress, did my makeup as best as I could, and told myself I was doing the right thing. Rachel had texted me that morning. Just a quick message saying she wished I was coming and that she'd send me pictures. I sent back a heart emoji and left it at that. I got to the stadium around 1:30. I didn't tell anyone I was coming, obviously. I bought a ticket from some random scalper outside who was selling extras. Cost me like $100, which was ridiculous, but whatever. Money didn't really matter anymore. The stadium was packed. Thousands of people, all there to watch their kids or siblings or friends graduate. I found a seat way up in the back, as far from where Rachel and David would be sitting as possible. I brought a baseball cap and sunglasses just in case, which probably made me look like a celebrity trying to go incognito or something. But it worked. The ceremony started with the typical pomp and circumstance. The graduates filed in wearing their caps and gowns. I spotted Emma pretty quickly, even from far away. She was easy to pick out because she dyed her hair this bright red color since the last time I'd seen her. Very her, very bold. My heart did this weird thing where it felt like it was expanding and breaking at the same time. You know? Seeing her there, all grown up, about to get her degree. I remembered when she was 7 and told me she wanted to be a scientist who saved the environment. And here she was, actually doing it, actually making that dream happen. The speeches were long and boring, like graduation speeches always are. Some dean talked about the future and possibilities and blah, blah, blah. A valedictorian gave a speech about their class and their journey. I barely heard any of it. I was just watching Emma, memorizing everything about this moment. When they finally started calling names, I sat up straighter. I wasn't gonna miss this. They went alphabetically by college, and environmental science was part of the College of Natural Sciences, so it took forever to get there. But then finally, they started calling the environmental science graduates. And then I heard it. Emma Catherine Morrison. She walked across that stage with her head held high, shook hands with the dean, received her diploma, and smiled. That smile. God, I hadn't seen her smile in so long. A real smile, not the polite fake one she'd give me at family gatherings. I started crying right there in my seat, just tears streaming down my face behind my sunglasses. This random lady next to me handed me a tissue, probably thinking I was just another emotional family member, which I guess I was. After Emma got her diploma and sat back down, I figured I'd done what I came to do. I'd seen her graduate. I'd been there, even if she didn't know it, even if she'd never know it. That was enough. I stood up to leave, planning to slip out before the ceremony ended. But as I was making my way down the stairs of the stadium, trying to be all inconspicuous, I felt this wave of dizziness hit me. The headaches had been bad all morning, but I'd taken some pain meds and pushed through. But now, all of a sudden, the world tilted sideways. I grabbed onto the railing, trying to steady myself. The lady behind me asked if I was okay. I tried to say yes, but the words came out wrong, slurred. And then my legs just gave out. Next thing I knew, I was on the ground, and people were crowding around me. Someone was calling for help. I heard radios crackling. Security or paramedics, maybe. Everything was fuzzy and confused. I remember being lifted onto a stretcher. I remember the bright sun in my eyes as they carried me out of the stadium. I remember thinking really stupidly that at least Emma wouldn't find out I'd been there. They were taking me out a different exit, far from where the ceremony was still going on. But then I heard her voice. Aunt Jenny? Oh my God, Aunt Jenny! I forced my eyes open. Emma was running toward me, still in her cap and gown. Her face was pale, eyes wide with fear. What happened? She was asking the paramedics. Is she okay? What's wrong with her? Miss, are you family? One of them asked. I'm her niece, Emma said, her voice shaking. I'm her niece. Please, what's wrong? They were loading me into an ambulance. Emma climbed in too, before anyone could stop her. She grabbed my hand. And it was the first time she touched me voluntarily in like 4 years. Aunt Jenny, what's going on? She asked. She was crying now. Why are you even here? You weren't supposed to. Why are you here? I tried to answer her, but everything was getting dark around the edges. The last thing I remember before passing out was Emma squeezing my hand and saying, Please don't leave me. Please don't go. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. The lights were dim, and it took me a second to remember where I was and what had happened. My head hurt like hell. Worse than it ever had before. Rachel was sitting in a chair next to my bed. Her face was all red and blotchy from crying. When she saw me wake up, she let out this sob and grabbed my hand. "Jenny?" she breathed. "Oh, thank God." "Hey," I croaked. My mouth was super dry. "Where's Emma?" "She's in the waiting room," Rachel said. She grabbed a cup of water from the bedside table and helped me drink some. "Jenny, why didn't you tell me?" So she knew. Of course she knew. The doctors must have told her about the tumor. "I didn't want to ruin Emma's graduation," I said quietly. Rachel made this noise that was half laugh, half sob. "You scared us half to death. Emma found your medical records in your purse. The doctors confirmed it." "Jenny, how long have you known?" "Couple months," I admitted. "A couple months?" Rachel's voice went up. "You've known for months that you have a brain tumor and you didn't tell me? I'm your sister!" "I know," I said. "I'm sorry. I needed to handle it my own way. And I needed to be at Emma's graduation." "You could have died today," Rachel said, fresh tears spilling over. "You collapsed in front of thousands of people. Emma saw them loading you into an ambulance. Do you have any idea how terrified she was?" "She wasn't supposed to see," I said. "I was going to slip out early." "Well, that plan went great, didn't it?" Rachel said, but there was no real anger in her voice, just sadness and fear. Before I could respond, there was a knock on the door. Emma peeked her head in. She'd changed out of her graduation gown. Her eyes were red from crying, and she looked younger somehow, vulnerable. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. Rachel looked at me. I nodded. Rachel squeezed my hand once more and then stood up. "I'm gonna call David," she said. "Update him on everything. I'll be right outside if you need me." She left, and Emma came in. She stood there awkwardly for a second, like she wasn't sure what to do. Then she pulled the chair closer to my bed and sat down. We were quiet for a long minute. Finally, Emma spoke. "Why did you come?" she asked. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I told you not to. I told you I didn't want you there." "I know," I said. "I'm sorry. I needed to see you graduate. Even though I didn't want you there?" "Yeah," I admitted. "Even though." Emma's face crumpled. "You have a brain tumor. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yeah." "How long? Have I known, or how long do I have?" "Both. I've known for about 3 months. As for how long I have," I shrugged, which hurt. 6 months to 2 years, depending on treatment. Maybe less now that I held off on starting it. Emma was full on crying now. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Because I didn't want your graduation to be about me," I said honestly. "It was your day, your accomplishment. I didn't want to take that away from you." "So you were just going to die without telling anyone?" "No, I was going to tell everyone after your graduation. I was going to start treatment and tell the family and deal with all of it. But I needed to see you walk across that stage first." "Why?" Emma demanded. "Why was that so important? I've been horrible to you for years. I uninvited you to my graduation. Why would you risk your health to come anyway?" And here was the moment, right? The moment where I could ask her why she'd been so cold to me, where I could demand an explanation for years of hurt. But looking at her face, all tear-stained and scared, I didn't want to do that. Instead, I just told her the truth. "Because I love you," I said simply. "Because I've loved you since the day you were born. Because even though you pushed me away, even though you didn't want me there, you're still my niece. You're still that little girl who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during car rides. You're still the kid I taught to ride a bike and braid hair and bake cookies. And I wasn't gonna miss seeing you graduate. Not for anything. Emma put her face in her hands and sobbed, like really sobbed. Her whole body shook with it. I reached out and put my hand on her arm. She didn't pull away. When she finally calmed down enough to talk, she looked up at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. There was pain there, and guilt, and something else, something that looked almost like relief. "I owe you an explanation," she said quietly. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "No, I do." She wiped her face with the sleeve of her shirt. "You deserve to know why I've been such a jerk to you." I waited. My heart was pounding, partially from whatever was happening with the tumor, partially from anticipation. Emma took a deep breath. "Do you remember when I was 15 and you took me shopping for homecoming? Just the two of us?" I nodded. "Yeah, of course. We went to that mall across town. You tried on like 20 dresses. Do you remember what you said to me in the dressing room?" I tried to think back. It was 6 years ago now, and my memory wasn't what it used to be, even before the tumor. I'm not sure. I told you that you looked beautiful. You told me a lot of things. Emma said, "We were talking about my life, about school, about boys. And I told you something I hadn't told anyone else." She paused, her hands twisting together in her lap. "I told you I thought I might be gay." The memory came flooding back. Oh God, yeah, she had told me that. We'd been sitting in that dressing room, her in this blue dress that ended up being the one she bought, and she'd said it so quietly I'd almost missed it. "I think I might like girls." "I remember," I said softly. "Do you remember what you said back?" I tried to remember. I'd been supportive, hadn't I? I told her it was okay, that I loved her no matter what. At least, that's what I thought I'd said. "You said," Emma continued, her voice thick with emotion, "that it was probably just a phase, that lots of girls go through questioning periods when they're teenagers, that I shouldn't worry too much about it because I'd probably grow out of it." Oh no. The memory crystallized fully now. Yeah, that's exactly what I'd said. I'd meant it kindly, meant it as reassurance. I'd thought I was telling her not to stress, not to label herself too quickly. But what she'd heard... "Emma," I started, but she kept talking. "I know you didn't mean it badly," she said quickly. "I know you were trying to be nice, but when you said that, it felt like you were saying my feelings weren't real, like you were dismissing this huge thing I'd just shared with you." "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I went home that day and I just felt so embarrassed," Emma continued, "and confused, because you were my favorite aunt, you know? You were the person I thought I could tell anything to, and then you basically told me I was going through a phase." "I didn't understand," I said. "I was an idiot." I convinced myself that if even you, the cool aunt who was always so accepting, didn't take me seriously, then maybe I really was just confused. So I tried to ignore it. I dated boys in high school. I told myself you were right, that it was just a phase. "But it wasn't," I said quietly. "No," Emma confirmed. "It wasn't. By my sophomore year of college, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I started dating a girl named Sophie, and it was like everything clicked into place. I finally understood who I was. I came out to my parents junior year, and they were amazing about it. So supportive." "That's good," I said. "I'm glad they were there for you. But I couldn't tell you," Emma said, "because every time I thought about it, I remembered what you said in that dressing room. I remembered how you dismissed my feelings, and I was so angry at you for that, for making me doubt myself. for making me feel like I couldn't trust my own emotions. The tears were streaming down my face now. Emma, I'm so sorry. I know I should have just talked to you about it, Emma said. I should have told you how your words affected me, but I was hurt and stubborn, and every year that passed, it got harder to bring up. So I just pulled away, made myself cold to you so it wouldn't hurt as much. And the graduation? Emma let out a shaky laugh. I'm bringing my girlfriend, Sophie. We've been together for 2 years now, and she's amazing. She's meeting my whole extended family for the first time at the party tomorrow. And I couldn't handle having you there too. Couldn't handle potentially having you react badly or say something dismissive again. It was easier to just not invite you. We sat there in silence for a moment. 6 years of distance, 6 years of hurt. All because of one thoughtless comment I'd made in a dressing room. I was wrong, I finally said. What I said back then, I was completely wrong. I don't even know why I said it. Maybe I was caught off guard. Maybe I was trying to make you feel less pressured. I don't know. But it was the wrong thing to say, and I hurt you, and I'm sorry. You really don't think it was just a phase? Emma asked, and she sounded like a teenager again, vulnerable and seeking validation. No, I said firmly. I think you know yourself better than anyone else could. I think you were brave to tell me, and I think I failed you when you needed support. And I'm sorry it took me dying to figure all this out. Emma let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Don't joke about that. Who's joking? I said. But seriously, Emma, I'm proud of you. Not just for graduating, but for figuring out who you are and being brave enough to live authentically. And I'd love to meet Sophie if you'll let me. Really? Really. I mean, assuming I don't die in the next 24 hours. Stop it, Emma said, but she was almost smiling. Too soon? Way too soon. She reached out and grabbed my hand. I squeezed back. I'm sorry I was so cold to you, Emma said. I'm sorry I uninvited you to graduation. I'm sorry for all of it. I'm sorry I gave you a reason to, I countered. Can we start over? Emma asked. Like, can we pretend the last 6 years didn't happen and just try again? I'd like that. I said, although fair warning, I might not have a ton of time left to make it right. Then we'll make the most of whatever time there is, Emma said, firmly. Rachel came back in then, followed by a doctor who wanted to check on me. They'd stabilized me, but I'd had a seizure triggered by the tumor, and they wanted to keep me overnight for observation. Emma stayed with me the whole time. She texted Sophie to explain what happened, and Sophie said she'd come by later. Rachel called the rest of the family, and soon my hospital room was crowded with people. Everyone was crying and hugging me and asking why I hadn't told them. I repeated my explanation about not wanting to ruin Emma's day. Rachel said I was an idiot. Emma agreed. I couldn't really argue with that. David showed up with Emma's graduation cap and gown. You left these in the ambulance, he said, handing them to her. I have an idea, Emma said suddenly. She looked at me. Can you sit up? Yeah, I think so. With Rachel's help, I maneuvered into a sitting position. Emma draped her graduation gown around my shoulders and put her cap on my head. What are you doing? I asked. You came all that way to see me graduate, Emma said. The least I can do is let you wear the outfit. She had Rachel take a picture of us. Me in the hospital bed, wearing Emma's cap and gown. Emma sitting on the edge of the bed with her arm around me. Both of us smiling even though we'd been crying 2 minutes before. Sophie showed up around 8. She was this really pretty girl with curly black hair and the brightest smile I'd ever seen. She hugged Emma, and then, to my surprise, she hugged me too. "I've heard so much about you," Sophie said. "It's so nice to finally meet you. Even though I'm meeting you in a hospital bed, well, possibly dying?" I joked. Sophie laughed. "Especially because of that. Emma says you risked your health to see her graduate, even though she told you not to come. That's pretty badass." I liked her immediately. The nurse eventually kicked everyone out except for Rachel, who refused to leave. She slept in the chair next to my bed, holding my hand. The next morning, they ran a bunch more tests and made me promise to start treatment immediately. Dr. Richardson came by and basically scolded me for waiting so long, but in a nice way. He said the seizure was a warning sign that the tumor was getting more aggressive. "We need to start chemo and radiation this week," he said. "The sooner the better." "What about Emma's graduation party?" I asked. "It's tonight." Dr. Richardson and Rachel both started to protest, but I cut them off. "I'll start treatment tomorrow, I promise, but I'm going to that party if I have to sneak out of this hospital." They eventually agreed, mostly because they knew I'd do it anyway. Rachel took me home to help me get ready. As she was helping me pick out an outfit, she said, "Emma told me what happened, why she was so cold to you." "Yeah?" "Yeah. Jenny, did you really say that to her, about it being a phase?" I sat down on my bed. "I did. I don't even know why. It was stupid and dismissive, and I hurt her." "You hurt her a lot," Rachel said gently. "But you came to her graduation anyway, even after she told you not to, even knowing you were risking your health. That says something." "It says I'm stubborn," I joked weakly. "It says you love her," Rachel corrected. "More than your pride, more than your hurt feelings. That's real love, Jenny." She helped me into a nice dress and did my makeup to cover the hospital pallor. I still looked sick, but at least I looked presentable. The party was at this beautiful event space Rachel had rented. There were like 150 people there, all celebrating Emma. The place was decorated with green and gold, Emma's school colors. There was a huge cake with her graduation photo on it, tables full of food, a DJ playing music. When I walked in with Rachel, Emma saw me immediately. She'd been talking to some friends, but she excused herself and came right over. "You came," she said, smiling. "Of course I came. I was invited this time," I pointed out. She laughed and hugged me. A real hug, the kind we used to do before everything went wrong. When she pulled back, she said, "There's someone I want you to meet properly." She led me over to where Sophie was standing with a group of people. Emma put her arm around Sophie's waist in this casual, comfortable way that made it obvious they'd been together for a while. "Aunt Jenny, this is my girlfriend Sophie," Emma said, and there was so much pride in her voice. "Sophie, this is my Aunt Jenny, who I've told you about." "The cool aunt," Sophie said, shaking my hand. "I'm glad you're feeling better." We talked for a bit, and I got to hear about how they met in an environmental policy class freshman year, how Sophie had spilled coffee all over Emma's notes and felt so bad she'd offered to buy her dinner to make up for it, how that dinner had turned into 3 hours of talking about climate change and activism and everything else, how they'd been inseparable ever since. Watching Emma talk about Sophie, seeing her face light up, I felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude that I'd lived long enough to see this, to see Emma happy and in love and completely herself. Throughout the party, different family members kept coming up to me. Some knew about the tumor. Word had spread fast. Others didn't, and I had to tell them. Each time I did, there were tears and hugs and questions I didn't always have answers to. My mom, Emma's grandmother, cried so hard she had to sit down. "Why didn't you tell me, baby?" she kept asking. "Why didn't you say something?" I didn't want everyone to worry, I explained for what felt like the 100th time. "We're gonna worry anyway," she said. "That's what family does." Emma gave a speech at one point, thanking everyone for coming and talking about her time at college. She talked about her professors, her friends, her experiences, and then she said something that made my breath catch. "I also want to thank my family," Emma said, looking around the room, "especially my parents for their constant support, and my Aunt Jenny, who taught me that sometimes loving someone means showing up even when it's hard, even when you're not sure you're welcome, even when it might cost you something." Everyone looked at me. I felt my face get hot. "Aunt Jenny came to my graduation yesterday, even though I told her not to," Emma continued. "And I'm really glad she did, because it reminded me that family shows up for each other, that love isn't conditional, and that sometimes we need to forgive each other for the stupid things we say and do." She raised her glass. "To family and second chances." Everyone echoed the toast. I wiped my eyes, trying not to completely fall apart. After her speech, Emma came over and sat next to me. "Was that okay?" she asked quietly. "I didn't mean to put you on the spot." "It was perfect," I said, honestly. We sat there for a minute, watching people dance and laugh and celebrate. Then Emma said, "So when do you start treatment?" "Tomorrow," I told her. "Dr. Richardson wants to start aggressive chemo right away, then radiation, the whole deal." "How bad is it going to be?" "Pretty bad from what I understand. I'll probably lose my hair. I'll be sick a lot, tired, all the fun stuff." "I want to be there," Emma said. "For your appointments, I mean, if you want me there." "Don't you have a job starting soon?" Emma had lined up a position with an environmental nonprofit starting in June. "I can push back my start date," Emma said. "I already talked to them, explained the situation. They're fine with me starting in August instead." "Emma, you don't have to do that." "I know I don't have to," she said. "I want to. We lost 6 years, Aunt Jenny. I don't want to waste whatever time we have left." The tears came again. "I seem to be crying a lot lately. I'd really like that," I managed to say. Sophie came over then and sat on Emma's other side. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," I said. "I just wanted to say," Sophie started, looking a little nervous, "that I'm really glad Emma has you. She talks about you a lot, you know. Even when she was mad at you, she'd tell me stories about stuff you did together when she was a kid. You clearly mean a lot to her." "She means a lot to me too," I said. "And I want you to know," Sophie continued, "that I'll take care of her. Whatever happens with your treatment, whatever comes next, I'll make sure she's okay." It was such an earnest, sincere thing to say. This girl who barely knew me, promising to look after my niece. I reached over and squeezed her hand. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The party went late into the night. I stayed as long as I could, but eventually the exhaustion caught up with me. Rachel noticed me flagging and offered to take me home. Emma walked us to the car. "I'll come by tomorrow before your appointment," she said. "If that's okay." "I'd love that," I told her. She hugged me tight. "I love you, Aunt Jenny, and sorry it took me so long to say it again." "I love you too, kiddo, and I'm sorry for everything." "We're even," she said, pulling back and smiling through tears. "Clean slate from here on out." Rachel drove me home. We didn't talk much, both of us too emotional and tired. When we got to my place, she helped me inside and into bed. "Do you want me to stay?" she asked. "No, go home to David. I'll be fine." "You sure?" "Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow." She kissed my forehead like I was a little kid and left. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened in the last 48 hours. I'd gone to Emma's graduation, thinking it might be the last time I saw her, thinking I'd watch from a distance and then fade away. Instead, I'd collapsed, ended up in the hospital, and somehow, miraculously, fixed the thing that had been broken between us for 6 years. I'd gotten my niece back. I'd met her girlfriend. I'd been there for her graduation, not just physically, but emotionally. She knew I loved her enough to show up, even when she didn't want me to. And more importantly, she understood why I'd said what I'd said, and she'd forgiven me. If I died tomorrow, at least I'd have that. At least I know that Emma and I had made our peace. But I wasn't planning on dying tomorrow. I was planning on fighting, because now I had something to fight for. Treatment started the next day, just like Dr. Richardson had said. Emma showed up at my door at 8 in the morning with coffee and breakfast sandwiches. "You ready for this?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," I said. She drove me to the hospital. Rachel met us there, along with David. My mom came too, and my best friend Lisa. I told Lisa everything the day after the graduation, and she'd yelled at me for like 20 minutes for not telling her sooner, and then cried. And then told me she'd be there for whatever I needed. Dr. Richardson explained the treatment plan in detail. Aggressive chemo cocktail to try to shrink the tumor. Radiation 5 days a week. Surgery wasn't really an option because of where the tumor was located, but if the chemo and radiation worked, I might have more time. The first chemo session was brutal. They warned me it would be, but knowing something intellectually and experiencing it are two very different things. By that evening, I was throwing up every hour. Everything hurt. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep properly. Emma stayed over at my place that first night. She held my hair back when I got sick. She made sure I stayed hydrated. She put on old movies we used to watch together when she was a kid. "You don't have to do this." I told her at one point, "Go home, get some sleep. I'm not leaving," she said simply. Over the next few weeks, Emma became my primary caretaker. She moved into my guest room temporarily. She drove me to every appointment, every treatment. She learned how to manage my medications, what foods I could tolerate, when I needed quiet, and when I needed distraction. Sophie came by a lot too. Sometimes she'd bring dinner for all of us, stuff that was easy on my stomach. Other times, she'd just hang out with Emma while I slept, keeping her company. My hair started falling out about 3 weeks in. I'd known it would happen, but it was still shocking the first time I woke up to find clumps of it on my pillow. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. Pale, thin, bald, sick. Emma found me crying in the bathroom. Without saying anything, she got the electric clippers. "What are you doing?" I asked. "You're gonna lose it all anyway," she said. "Might as well control when and how." She shaved my head right there in the bathroom. When she was done, she looked at herself in the mirror and said, "You know what? Solidarity." And before I could stop her, she shaved her own head too. That beautiful red hair she'd been growing for years, gone. "Emma, what did you just do?" I asked, shocked. She grinned at me. "Now we match! Bald buddies!" I started crying again, but this time it was from gratitude and love rather than despair. Sophie came over later, and her eyes went wide when she saw Emma. "You shaved your head?" "Yeah," Emma said, running her hand over her smooth scalp. "What do you think?" "I think you're crazy," Sophie said. "But I also think you're the most beautiful person I've ever seen." She kissed Emma, And even feeling as awful as I did, I smiled watching them. The weeks blurred together. Good days and bad days. Days where I felt almost normal and days where I couldn't get out of bed. Days where the treatment seemed to be working and days where it felt like I was dying faster instead of slower. Emma was there through all of it. She celebrated the good days with me and held my hand through the bad ones. We talked about everything and nothing. About her childhood, about college, about her plans for the future with Sophie, about my regrets and my hopes. One night, about 2 months into treatment, I asked her something I'd been wondering. Do you think you'll marry Sophie? Emma looked surprised by the question. Yeah, actually, I think I will. Eventually. Is that weird? No, I said. It's wonderful. She's great, Emma. She's really great. I want you at the wedding, Emma said suddenly. Whenever it happens. If it's next year or 5 years from now, I want you there. I want to be there too, I said. And I meant it. Around month 3, Dr. Richardson had good news. The tumor had shrunk. Not a lot, but enough to be significant. The treatment was working, at least somewhat. Does this mean I'm gonna live? I asked him. It means you're fighting, he said carefully. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep fighting. So I did. I kept showing up for treatments even when I wanted to give up. Kept choking down food even when everything tasted like metal. Kept taking the medications even though they made me feel terrible. And Emma kept showing up too, every single day. Even after she started her job in August, working from my place on days when I had appointments, rearranging her schedule to be there. Don't you have your own life to live? I asked her one day. You're part of my life, she said simply. This is where I want to be. Rachel came by often too, sometimes with David, sometimes alone. My mom visited weekly. Lisa came by when she could. But Emma was the constant. Emma was always there. We fell into this routine, this weird new normal. We'd watch Jeopardy together every evening. She'd quiz me on the questions to keep my brain sharp. Since the tumor sometimes affected my memory and cognition. We'd cook together on days when I felt up to it. Nothing fancy, just simple stuff. We'd look through old photo albums, and she'd ask me to tell her stories about the pictures. One day, she found a photo of the two of us from when she was about 8. We were at the beach, both grinning at the camera, sunburned and sandy and happy. I remember this day, Emma said softly. You taught me to boogie board. You wiped out like 100 times, I recalled, but you kept getting back on. Because you told me that's what brave people do, Emma said. They keep getting back on even when it's scary. She looked at me. You're doing that now, getting back on the board every day even though it's scary. I learned from the best, I said. It was moments like that, small and quiet and real, that made the fight worth it. 6 months into treatment, I hit a rough patch. The tumor started growing again, despite the chemo and radiation. Dr. Richardson adjusted my medications, made the treatment more aggressive. The side effects got worse. There was a week where I was so sick I couldn't keep anything down. Where I was so weak I couldn't walk without help. Where the pain was so bad I couldn't think straight. Emma called in sick to work and didn't leave my side. Sophie brought her laptop and worked from my living room so Emma wouldn't be alone. Maybe it's time, I said one night when Emma was helping me to the bathroom. Maybe I should stop treatment. Just let it happen. No, Emma said firmly. You're not giving up. Not yet. I'm so tired, Emma. I know, she said, her voice breaking. I know you are, but you don't get to leave me yet, okay? We just got each other back. You don't get to leave. So I didn't. I kept fighting. mostly for her. And then something amazing happened. Week 7 of the new treatment protocol, I woke up and the pain was less. Not gone, but manageable. I could think clearly. I could eat a little bit. Dr. Richardson did a scan, and his eyes went wide. "I'll be damned," he said. "It's shrinking again, significantly this time." "What does that mean?" Emma asked. She'd come to the appointment with me like always. "It means we might be looking at remission," Dr. Richardson said cautiously. "I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but this is very, very good news." Emma grabbed my hand and squeezed so hard it hurt. Over the next few months, I slowly got better. The tumor kept shrinking. The side effects from treatment started to ease up. I started being able to do more, eat more, live more. My hair started growing back. This weird fuzzy stuff at first, then actual hair. Emma's grew back too, even redder than before somehow. By month 10, Dr. Richardson used the word remission officially. The tumor was still there, but it was small and stable. I'd need to keep doing scans every few months to make sure it stayed that way. But for now, I was okay. I was alive. Emma cried when we got the news. So did I. So did Rachel and David and my mom and Lisa and everyone else who'd been on this journey with us. "You did it," Emma said, hugging me tight. "You actually did it." "We did it," I corrected. "I couldn't have done it without you." Life slowly returned to something resembling normal. I went back to work part-time at first, then full-time. Emma was thriving at her job, doing amazing work with environmental policy. Sophie got promoted at her company. We started having family dinners again, all of us together. Emma and Sophie came over to my place at least once a week. Sometimes we'd cook, sometimes we'd order in. We'd watch movies or play board games or just talk. It was like we were making up for lost time, cramming in as many moments as possible. About a year after my remission, Emma called me one evening. "Hey, you busy next Saturday?" "Don't think so. Why?" "Sophie and I are having some people over. Small thing. Would you come?" "Of course," I said. When Saturday came, I showed up at Emma and Sophie's apartment. They'd moved in together a few months earlier. A cute little place with big windows and plants everywhere. When Emma opened the door, she was practically vibrating with excitement. "Come in, come in!" The apartment was full of people. Family, friends, Sophie's parents who I'd met a few times. Everyone was dressed nice. "What's going on?" I asked Emma. She grinned and grabbed Sophie's hand. They stood in the middle of the living room and everyone got quiet. "So," Emma said, "Sophie and I have been together for 3 years now. 3 amazing years. And we've decided that we want to spend the rest of our lives together." Sophie pulled out a small box. "We're getting married." The room erupted in cheers and congratulations. I hugged them both, crying happy tears this time. "I told you I wanted you at my wedding," Emma whispered in my ear. "And now you're gonna be there. You're gonna be there to see it." "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I said. The wedding was 6 months later, in early spring. Small and intimate, just close family and friends. It was outdoors at this beautiful garden venue, everything in bloom. I was one of Emma's attendants, along with her 2 best friends from college. Rachel was her matron of honor. I wore a dress Emma helped me pick out, soft blue, like the one she'd worn to homecoming all those years ago. As I watched Emma walk down the aisle, Sophie waiting for her with the biggest smile, I thought about how close I'd come to missing this. how I'd almost died without ever knowing why Emma had pushed me away. How a simple apology and forgiveness had given me back something I'd thought was lost forever. During the reception, Emma pulled me aside. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not giving up. On me, on yourself, for coming to my graduation, even though I told you not to. For fighting to stay alive. For everything. You're the one who took care of me," I pointed out. "Because you showed me what real love looks like," Emma said. "You showed me that love means showing up, even when it's hard, even when you're scared, even when the other person tells you to go away. You showed up for me, so I wanted to show up for you." "We showed up for each other," I said. She hugged me tight. "Yeah, we did." As I watched Emma and Sophie dance their first dance as a married couple, surrounded by everyone who loved them, I felt this overwhelming sense of peace. I didn't know how much time I had left. The tumor could come back. The cancer could spread. But right now, in this moment, I was alive and I was here. I'd made it to Emma's graduation. I'd fought through treatment. I'd rebuilt our relationship. And now I was here, watching her marry the love of her life. Whatever came next, at least I had this. At least I had these memories, these moments, this second chance I'd fought so hard for. Emma caught my eye from the dance floor and smiled. That same brilliant smile I'd seen at her graduation. I smiled back, my heart full. Yeah, I'd made the right choice that day, going to her graduation even though she'd told me not to. It was the best decision I'd ever made. Because sometimes love means showing up, even when you're not wanted, even when it costs you something, even when you're afraid. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, showing up leads to forgiveness, to healing, to second chances you never thought you'd get. I got my second chance. Emma got hers too. And in the end, that's all any of us really want. A chance to make things right. A chance to say we're sorry and mean it. A chance to love the people who matter to us. For as long as we possibly can. I didn't know how many years I had left. Maybe 1, maybe 5, maybe 20 if I was incredibly lucky. But however many it was, I was going to spend them showing up. For Emma, for my family, for myself. Because I'd learned the hard way that time is precious and fragile and never guaranteed. And the only thing worse than not having enough time is wasting the time you do have. So I wasn't gonna waste it. Not anymore. I was gonna live every day I had left. I was gonna love hard and forgive easily and show up for the people who mattered. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. That's my story. The story of how my niece told me not to come to her graduation and why I went anyway. The story of how a brain tumor and a hospital collapse and a 6-year misunderstanding somehow led to healing. It's not the story I thought I'd be telling. When I got that diagnosis, when Emma sent me that text, I thought my story was ending. I thought I'd lost her forever, and that I'd die before I ever understood why. But life's funny like that. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best ones. Sometimes you have to almost lose everything to realize what really matters. Emma and I talk about that day sometimes, about her graduation, about how I collapsed in the stadium, how she found me being loaded into an ambulance, about how scared she was, how angry at herself for wasting so many years being mad about something we could have resolved with one honest conversation. And I tell her the same thing every time. I'd do it again. I'd collapse 100 more times if it meant getting you back. She usually rolls her eyes at that, tells me I'm being dramatic. But I mean it. Every word. Because family isn't just about blood. It's not just about showing up when you're invited or when it's convenient. It's about showing up especially when it's hard, when you're scared, when you don't know if you'll be welcome. It's about loving people enough to risk rejection, enough to risk making things worse, enough to say I'm sorry even when years have passed. I almost let pride and hurt feelings keep me away from Emma's graduation. I almost decided that respecting her wishes mattered more than being there for one of the biggest moments of her life. But something in me, some deep instinct, knew I had to go. Even if she never knew I was there, even if she never forgave me, I had to show her. One last time, that I loved her, that I'd always loved her. And it turned out that was exactly what she needed to see. So if there's anything you take away from my story, let it be this: don't wait. Don't let pride or fear or hurt keep you from the people you love. Life's too short and too unpredictable. If there's someone you need to apologize to, do it now. If there's someone you've lost touch with, reach out now. If there's an event you're not sure you should go to, go anyway. Because you never know how much time you have. You never know which moment might be your last chance to make things right. I got lucky. I got my second chance with Emma. We got to fix what was broken between us. We got more time together. Not everyone gets that lucky. So don't waste the time you have. Don't let the years slip by holding on to grudges or misunderstandings. Don't miss the important moments because you're too proud or too scared to show up. Show up. Always show up. For the people you love, for yourself, for the life you want to live. That's what I learned from not being invited to my niece's graduation and going anyway. That showing up, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when you're not sure you should, is sometimes the most important thing you can do. And sometimes, if you're really, really lucky, showing up changes everything.